Well, Mover Nation, welcome to a somewhat impromptu Friday Night Live. Man, this has been a question that is been posed to me. I'm of course reading my news this morning as I'm on the treadmill and doing my thing, and comes across that this gentleman, January 6th defendant Ryan Samsel, has been convicted of multiple felonies. And when I read things like this, always makes me say, hey, dude, where is my country? I'm Collier Landry. Let's get into it.
Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in...
When I was 12 years old, my testimony sent my father to prison for murdering my mother. I decided at an early age that our trauma should not be what defines us. It's what we choose to do with it that does. I'm here to share my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, albeit with a slight sense of humor. I'm Collier Landry, and welcome to my show. Mover Nation, I have decided that we need to take a much-needed respite from talking about all things true crime and talking about murder and all these things, and get into some stuff that I'm actually really interested in. And I'm not going to talk about politics, but there are some certain true crime cases that are floating around the ancillary, the periphery of all this politics. And, I am often someone who spend a lot of time, I live in a very liberal state, but I always say to myself, dude, where is my country? And I got to tell you guys, I'm asking myself this more and more as we head into this year's election year. And I want to welcome all of you. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you may be and however you may be listening or watching. Thank you for making me a part of your day. This is a show where I offer my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, and albeit with a slight sense of humor. This is the Collier Landry Show, and this is a safe place for all of us. Please, no doxing, no negative comments. We try to keep everything positive here. I realize that a lot of these are very polarizing issues for people. You're very passionate, and I love this about you guys, my audience, but please, let's keep it nice in the comments. Let's keep it clean. We have moderators, but I do think that things like this are worth talking about. So the Washington Post and Politico and every other media organization is reporting today, Jan 6 rioters who U.S. says, quote, ignited the path for the Capitol attack are convicted. Ryan Samsel was among a group who overwhelmed 5 officers at Peace Circle, seriously injuring one of them. They were 5 men from different states who never met each other, but on January 6, 2021, found themselves together at the front of an angry push by rioters toward the U.S. Capitol. And together, videos showed they lifted a line of 5 linked barriers and heaved them into a group of 5 Capitol police officers with such force that one of the officers went airborne, striking her head and falling briefly unconscious. The encounter at the Peace Circle, prosecutors said, cleared the first path for rioters to reach the Capitol, where Trump supporters on the west side of the building surged forward as the police retreated. The 5 men continued to wreak havoc, fighting with officers or encouraging other rioters to push ahead. And on Friday, a federal judge found all 5 guilty of assaulting law enforcement and convicted 3 of them for obstructing the confirmation of the 2020 presidential election. Quote, these defendants are who started it, unquote, Assistant U.S. Attorney Alexandra F. Foster said in her closing argument on November the 2nd to the U.S. District Court Judge Gia M. Cobb, after the defendants chose a bench trial instead of a jury trial. Quote, there is little doubt that this moment ignited a fire that lasted around the Capitol for hours. They started the Capitol breach. Now they must take responsibility. Defense lawyers argued that pinning responsibility on 5 men for a riot involving thousands of others was unfair. Ryan Samsel, 39, of Bristol, Pennsylvania, was the most prominent of the group, first unlatching the barricades at an unguarded spot on the Peace Circle, then leading the crowd toward a second line where he yelled at police and was part of the effort to launch the bike racks at the 5 officers. Video played at trial showed. He has been in jail since January of 2021, in part because of multiple violent assault convictions in previous years, mostly against women, and a pending arrest warrant for violating a restraining order. Samsel attorney Stanley Woodward said that the five men didn't launch the insurrection. He said, quote, "I think history and only history will tell us who started the riot on January 6th, Woodward said. Quote, "But we can't in good faith submit that one person or even five people are culpable for the events that day." He noted that surveillance video showed that other rioters approached the Capitol from a different angle than those from the Peace Circle, but prosecutors maintained that the Peace Circle was the first breach of the restricted perimeter. Samsel has gained notoriety because immediately before the assault began, he was caught on video speaking briefly with two other prominent figures that day, Joseph Briggs and Ray Epps. Joseph Biggs. Biggs, one of the leaders of the Proud Boys, could be seen talking to Samsel, giving the impression that Samsel was part of the far-right group. Samsel later denied that, and Biggs was subsequently found guilty of seditious conspiracy and sentenced to 17 years in prison. Now, I do remember this. Epps has been the focus of false claims that he was an undercover federal agent working to inflame the crowd. Epps and Samuel have both said that Epps was urging Samsel not to attack police. Epps was sentenced to probation in January. Samsel did not take the stand in his own defense, nor did any of his co-defendants. James T. Grant, 31, of Cary, North Carolina; Paul R. Johnson, 38, of Lenexa, Virginia; Stephen C. Randolph, 34, of Harrodsburg, Kentucky; or Jason B. Blythe, 28, of Fort Worth, Texas. But Officer Carolyn Edwards did take the stand, and as she provided riveting testimony last year at the House Select Committee hearings on the January 6th riot. She described watching the growing crowd move toward her small group of officers and then trying to hold the line as rioters began shaking the barricades and insulting the police. Video shot from behind the rioters shows Edwards and the other officers trying to maintain control of the bike racks, but then a rack on the far right is lifted away from a stone wall and the line of barriers moves quickly forward. Edwards said a steel bike rack first struck her in the jaw, then knocked her into the stairway railing and then to the ground. Quote, I landed with my head on the stairs, Edwards testified, according to NBC News, though the last thing she remembered was being hit in the jaw. The video showed that Samsel then ran around the downed barricades and picked Edwards up, but she shook him off and headed toward the Capitol. The lights were on, but no one was home, Edwards said. Edwards suffered a concussion and then endured vertigo and migraine headaches for months when she could not get out of bed, prosecutors said. As the crowd overran the police and headed for the West Terrace of the Capitol, video showed Samsel on Capitol grounds for another 90 minutes, trying to pull a riot shield away from police, trying to dismantle one of the inauguration scaffolds, and throwing a long 2x4 plank at officers. Johnson could be seen with a megaphone both at the Peace Circle and then at the Capitol. I'm now checking the comments, so I got to make sure my audio is working. On the West Terrace, Johnson can be heard. Johnson can be heard with a megaphone both at the Peace Circle and then at the Capitol, profanely insulting police, repeatedly urging rioters to press forward. On the West Terrace, Johnson could be heard, quote, telling the rioters where to go and what to do, Foster said. After Vice President Mike Pence declined to stop certification of the 2020 election, Johnson advised rioters to consult their phones for updates and then yelled, quote, they certified the vote. They just stole it. You going to stand around? Unquote. Lauren Rosen, Johnson's lawyer, argued that this is, quote, a case where the government overcharged an individual who made a poor decision, unquote. She said, quote, not that everyone present at Peace Circle is responsible for the offense against Officer Edwards, unquote. And the bike racks were, quote, not a deadly or dangerous weapon. Grant could be seen on video arguing with officers at the Peace Circle, then showing up against another line of officers on the West Terrace before entering the Capitol, where he posed for pictures inside a Senate office. Randolph was visited by an undercover agent who recorded Randolph admitting being at the Capitol, but not going inside, an audio recording showed. Blythe, quote, came ready for battle, Foster said, wearing a helmet and body armor. Lawyers for Grant, Randolph, and Blythe reminded the judge that the defendants did not know one another, didn't act together, and didn't deserve felony charges with 20-year maximum sentences. Quote, these 5 misbegotten, woe-begotten people, unquote, Grant's attorney Robert Feitel said, who, quote, had the misfortune to be in the same place at the same time. All defendants were convicted of felony civil disorder and 1 count of assaulting a police officer in addition to multiple trespassing-related misdemeanors. Samsel, Grant, and Johnson were convicted of obstructing an official proceeding, but Cobb acquitted Blythe and Randolph of those counts. The judge did not announce her reasons for the verdicts and said she would post a written order later. Samsel and Grant are already in jail, and prosecutors asked Cobb after the verdicts to order the other 3 defendants into custody. Judges in the D.C. federal area have largely declined to imprison defendants after guilty verdicts and after sentencings, and Cobb also declined to send the 3 men to jail. But she did ask for a briefing on the issue from both sides and left open the possibility that Johnson, Blythe, and Randolph might have to surrender before sentencing, which is scheduled for June 13th, 2024. Now, we're obviously a family here. Open Blackwater, thank you so much for your 5-month membership, or sorry, 7-month membership, and thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. This is fascinating. So I kind of want to hear what you guys have to say in the gallery, because to me, this is something, and I was not there, and I was someone who, during the 2016 election cycle, an election, and afterward, and in the aftermath of that election and the election of Donald Trump, said to my friends who were all going downtown to protest in downtown Los Angeles, not my president, not my this, not my that. I kept saying to them, guys, this is a very slippery slope, which we are all on, and we should tread lightly, because what happens if it's, quote, our guy or the other guy? And then January 6th happens, and I find this really disheartening. However, I know that a lot of people are very polarized on this issue and feel very vehemently that these individuals were acting on freedom, but I cannot unsee the things, and we're using their freedoms and acting like, quote, good citizens and responsible citizens. But I cannot, in good conscience, watch videos of the Capitol being breached, watch individuals smashing out windows in the Capitol building, watching people breach barricades, defy law enforcement, and think that that is someone who is a good citizen. Look, we are all taught to behave. I visited all those institutions and hallmarks of our great American democracy when I was a child. At no point in time did my teacher said, feel free to run up there and smash the windows. Feel free to run up there and do whatever you want because you're angry about something. I really think that is a very dangerous thing. And for these people to not want to accept responsibility is a problem. Now, does this mean that people should be handed down life sentences or anything? No. But does it mean that there should be consequences for their actions? Absolutely. And even the Supreme Court has weighed in on this as well, or is about to weigh in on this, because they have also agreed that some of these charges being leveled at some of these defendants is not exactly what it's all cracked up to be. U.S. District Court Gia Cobb issued the verdict 3 months after presiding over a bench trial with the 5 men who were also convicted of obstructing congressional proceedings, a felony charge that is now being scrutinized by the Supreme Court to determine whether it was meant to sweep in conduct alleged against January 6th defendants. So again, as we all see in all of these cases that go to trial, all these charges, they try to throw as much as they can against these defendants to make the conviction stick, to make their cases stick. And this is a little bit of a slippery slope in a lot of ways, because, again, They did wrong. They should be admonished for this. But does that mean their lives should be destroyed forever? There's already a mother of several children who is from Pennsylvania who I believe is now incarcerated because of her actions on January 6th. She was seen smashing a window with I believe like a telephone pole or something in the Capitol, and felt that she was, I don't know, out of her mind, as she said. She didn't even realize what was going on. But again, she committed the actions. I think it poses a lot. People became so polarized and so angry over this and this mob mentality of what went on January 6th. They didn't think of the consequences of their actions. They just reacted. And that's the problem. And you see this a lot, I think, when you see people who are, obviously tempers rage, tempers flare, and they get into, let's just say, a bar fight, and they end up taking someone's life in a bar fight. And they didn't intentionally do that, but they had alcohol in their system, which I guarantee a lot of these people that were there on January 6th were lit up like Christmas trees. These events then start the avalanche of behavior just keeps compounding, and obviously tempers flare. You're urging on other people. Again, this is a similar situation where people are just not thinking about the consequences of their actions. Like, hey, I could probably go to jail for assaulting a police officer. I could probably go to jail for breaching the Capitol. I've watched documentaries about this. I've seen these people running through. It was a mob mentality. Does that, I feel that everyone should have a voice in our democracy, because that's what democracy is about. People are allowed to be angry. They're allowed to feel one way or another about an election. If their guy didn't win, that is absolutely okay. But when you start taking the law into your own hands, that is a problem. And the it needs to be civil discourse, right? The civil disobedience. This was not civil when you end up harming other people, or you end up defacing the hallmarks of our democracy. And that is part of the problem, at least for me. But, it doesn't really matter what I think. What matters is what you guys think. Let's go to some of your comments. We might have a limited comments in the here. Hello, all. I can't stay tonight, but wanted to say hi and give a like. I'll be on the replay crew. Well, thank you so much. Jaden Brown says, I agree. What they were doing is so ridiculous. I remember being scared when I saw that and thinking, what is happening? Absolutely. I think the whole world watched in horror. And I thought I never, for the life of me, I don't think anyone thought for the life of us that this would actually happen in the United States. So to see it all unfold was really unfortunate. It was really sad too. It was just a very sad day for our democracy and for America, because we, I really do believe that, that people, we still held these institutions in great respect and in great regard. So, or in high regard. So, it's interesting. I'm sort of testing the waters a little bit with you guys, Mover Nation. It is a political year. This is all going to come up. We have rampant conspiracy theories about the Super Bowl and Taylor Swift. I'm going to get into that another day. But I thought, I dipped my toe into this because it's something that I feel very passionate about. I feel that no matter what, we should always hold ourselves to some sort of standard as good citizens, and maintain that despite what we feel, despite what your political leanings are. We sort of have to have cooler heads will prevail as we move forward, because we can't keep going on like this. And that's just my 2 cents on this. Again, it's not really what I think. It's what you guys think. I'm here for you. I'm a man of the people, though I'm not going to run for any public office anytime soon. And Black Widower, we love you in this community as well. So thank you so much. Black Widower has gifted 5 memberships, by the way. So for anyone who wants to join, there are memberships available. Somebody can post in, you just hit the 3 dots and you can accept gifted memberships. I'd love for everyone to join the channel. Please remember to hit the like and subscribe button as well. Much respect for taking this on. Many avoid it out of fear of the mob mentality. Well, I mean, look, I'm not really here saying anything I don't think that anyone's thinking, Layla Dakota, because, look, I feel like people should be able to express themselves in a civil way. And I also don't want to see people go to jail for making mistakes. As these lawyers had pointed out, like, they weren't thinking properly. Yes, absolutely. It sucks to see people let their emotions get the best of them and make decisions and choices that affect the rest of their lives and their families' lives. Like, that's what sucks. I don't want to see anyone do that. Not for these politicians. I'm sorry. Not for any of them. No one's life is worth throwing your own life away. This is the thing that I talk about a lot when I discuss true crime, the ramifications of violence, the impacts that these things have on communities, that they have on ancillary victims, on people that you don't even think that are impacted by these crimes, and the family members of the people who then have to serve time for their offense. They're not there being a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, a grandparent, or whomever, right? They're not able to be there for their families. And that really affects the family unit at a time when the family unit is so precious in our life. The party is here. Tina Luffman, thank you so much. Lifelong learner. Yes, we are all lifelong learners. Thank you for being rational. We have to protect democracy. Politics is not a spectator sport and needs positive, solution-oriented participation. Poly means people. Absolutely. Absolutely. Doesn't mean you can't be passionate at all. I think it is shameful where we are now the laughingstock of the world for being so childish and overthrow a legitimate standing government. I would concur that all of this made us look like a laughingstock. But as there are a lot of problems outside the world. I still tend to agree that this is the best country in the world. I am a proud American. I am proud to be here. I love my country very much. But I love all the things that make this country unique, which is our democracy, which is the ability for us to, and I'm not trying to pontificate, but the ability to have reasonable and rational discussions and continue to have discussions no matter what you think or feel. It is a massive part of our democracy that a lot of people never get to experience in their lifetimes. Not a lot of people outside the United States get to experience what a true democracy really is like, which is why people are flooding the borders to come to this country, because it is the best place on earth, in my opinion. So, I digress on that. And I have been thinking recently, like, where this channel is going and what I'm talking about. And yes, I love talking about true crime. I love engaging with all of you as my audience. But I think that these topics are really important as we head into an election year. Thinking about this and having rational discussions, I think, is really, really important. And Black Widow says it's not a laughingstock. It's a very important lesson. So Black Widow lives in Ireland, in the UK. So hopefully you are vouching that our country is not a laughingstock to the rest of the world. We had riots in Dublin recently from the same kind of thing. People only associating with carbon copy ideas, and there's no voice of reason. Yes, I did see that, Black Widow. I did see that. That was also really, really bad. Really bad. And it goes on everywhere. We go there for the carbs, for carbs, call. Oh, that's funny. That is funny. But yeah, I think this is, it popped up on my Apple News feed. Sometimes I like to talk about these things, sometimes I don't, but I figured, why not? We are going to get started in about 5 minutes on another topic. The Jennifer Crumley trial has come to an end, and we're going to break down the timeline, discuss it in our favorite true crime group on this channel in the next 5 minutes. I'm going to put a link to that right now. You guys can check it out. Going live at 3 o'clock, 6 p.m. Eastern here on Call Your Landry. On that note, Mover Nation, we're going to get over to the next one. I'll see you there in about 5 minutes. On that note, I'm Call Your Landry. Thanks for making me a part of your day. I'll see you on the next one.
This podcast is made possible by support from listeners just like you. For exclusive content around this podcast, please consider supporting me via Patreon by going to callyourlandry.com/ support. Please subscribe via Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from, and please leave us a 5-star review. If you want to see video episodes of this podcast, please check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Collier Landry. You can find links to additional resources in the show notes of today's episode. This podcast is a production of Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Collier Landry.